Standing up in McKinney, this is According to Callus, episode 634, coming to you on the 8th of May, the year of our Lord, 2024. And today we're going to talk about a time to choose. No, I'm not talking about Reagan's speech. I'm talking about just where we're at right now and what we can do. Before we get there, before I jump into that, let me remind you, the algorithm has not been kind, so I need your help. I want you to join in, follow, share, subscribe, look for those notifications, whatever it is. Join me on your podcatcher of choice. Subscribe to the show. On the social medias, I've got a page, I've got a group. You can join me there, or you can find me at the various other groups that I check in on or share my show on Facebook. And I am a pro at Gab. I drop in at MeWe, and I am there just so that you can get something a little unique, something a little different, hopefully something to inspire you to think for yourself and to make your own decisions about what you think about something. I never ask you to follow my lead or do as I say because I know better, because, quite frankly, even though I am fairly certain of what I think about things, doesn't mean that you might not know something that I don't know, or that you might, just have a different opinion, because that's the way the world works sometimes. You can feel free to disagree without being disagreeable. Or you can be disagreeable. That's okay too. We just block that. We have to do better. We have to offer an alternative. And that's basically what I'm talking about today. So here we go on with the program. So I've been at this for a few years now. I've been active in politics and all sorts of things. And I enjoy most of those interactions, most of the things that I get to do. It is a labor of love, if you will. There's also a legacy to protect. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that I'm looking to preserve the Republic, right? I'm fighting for the Republic. That comes with some sacrifices. There are some challenges in doing that, but we do it because we think it's worth fighting for. But we have to look at it from the standpoint of, do we make a choice, right? That's where the title is, A Time to Choose. Did you make the choice to invest in protecting the country that you love? Not the redefined, reimagined, or reformed country that perhaps a former president talked about. No, I'm talking about the country that I grew up in. I'm talking about the country that could elect somebody like Nixon, follow that person with Carter, and then end up with Reagan. Now, all three of those guys have issues. They had things that they supported or did that I'm not uber enthusiastic about, but all three loved their country. In their own way, for sure. All three made compromises that hurt them, in my opinion, in the long run. And for the most part, all three, once they were no longer president, still did lots of positive things for the community and society around them. Does that mean they were perfect? No. Does that mean that I would idolize any of them? No. But when I look at the current batch of folks, I have to think to myself, because, well, let's do this real quick. Let me just say, we have to be for things, not against things. You know, when you watch the races, many times, both sides do this, by the way, but my side of the aisle, we're particularly empathizing the things that we're against, the things that we oppose. Now, there are some very strange and problematic things, to put it mildly, that are being proposed and propagated at this time in my life. But you have to offer alternatives. You have to offer something positive that you support, things that you want to do. The problem is, for most conservatives, for most people that value liberty, we're so far down the path of government doing everything for you, or everybody expects that you're going to get something from government. When we tell them, no, we just want to be left alone, or we want government to stay out of this, it puts them into a situation where they can't imagine such a world. Now, that being said, right, you look at how do you protect those things that are valuable, the things that you want to keep, the things that are worthwhile. How do you protect those without sacrificing other things in order to protect them? Well, what do I mean? It's never escaped me that the guy that's running for president on the Republican side of the aisle is not exactly a conservative stalwart, is not exactly a ideal person that I would want to look up to and emulate as far as their personal lifestyle. That being said, he's been quite successful in doing a number of different things, and he has children that are, at least at this time, very loyal to him. There's something to be said for that as well. Does that mean he's done everything well or that he's been perfect? No. And certainly there are legitimate things to point out, shortcomings, hang-ups that you might have. But I think we're faced with the prospect that we, right of center, we Christian, we liberty lovers, defending a guy that's probably not really worth the defense we give him. But we have no choice because the alternative is just so terrible. And what I find extremely disappointing is the folks that are left of me, the center-left folks. They go on and on and on about his moral shortcomings or the things that are embarrassing, quite frankly. And they're right, but the candidate they're running is just as bad or worse. I mean, if you look at the history of the current resident, he's not on his first wife. He's clearly got a thing for, let's say, people that are not his wife. Not to mention the children that he's raised and some strange going on there. And clearly his business interests are equally muddied, if not more dubious. But they keep pushing and prodding on the shortcomings of the Donald, right? All the while supporting, protecting, and promoting a guy that's demonstrably the same, if not worse. And we, as the Christian right, the conservatives, we get upset and flustered, and I'm not there with you. I'm not electing a guy to lead my church. I'm not looking for a good Christian leader in the sense that the one that I might want would never, ever win a majority vote. But I'm simply accepting I have a choice of choice A or choice B. And I have to look at it as who hates me least? Who's going to cause me the least amount of damage? Now, I'm not going to bend over backwards. I'm not going to go to the mattresses, if you will, metaphorically speaking, to protect the guy. He's more than capable of doing it himself. But what I am going to do is question, if you hate the guy so much, then why are you okay with your guy? Because maybe he parrots some of the things that you'd rather hear? It's inexplicable to me. So when I look at how do I protect what's left of our nation, how do I protect the republic, and I'm presented with choice A or choice B, and choice A hates me and wants to destroy everything that I stand for, and choice B merely just doesn't like me and, quite frankly, doesn't give me one thought whatsoever, well, it becomes very clear which is the least damaging. They always talk about we're stuck with the choice of voting for the lesser of two evils. And we always theorize on what would it be like to vote for somebody that's not evil, right? What would it be like to refuse to vote for the lesser of evils? Well, that's great, but we're not given that option. And if I'm fighting a defensive action, which it is at the national stage, I mean, there's no winning at this point. But at the national stage, if I'm fighting a orderly retreat in order to regroup and recover and hold the line somewhere else, then I have no choice but to accept the lesser of the evils. And I'm sorry, the other options were just terrible. They had no chance. I mean, look, if I could go into a time machine and make Ron Paul 25 years younger and run him, yeah, he would be the ideal candidate as far as politically speaking, but I'm not sure that he'd be able to wow the audience and hold the line and do all the things that, he can do at the age he was 10 years ago. I'm not sure that the American public would be willing to listen to what he had to say. And when they trot out somebody like, RFK Jr., which, he's just another lefty. He can be good on a couple of issues, but he's just another lefty. Why would I get excited about that either? There are no good options at the national level. So you are left with, how do I best protect Texas? How do I best protect my community? How do I best protect my family, my society? So you're stuck with the lesser of two evils. Now, look, I know there's a lot of folks out there that are listening to me that are pro-Trump. They're MAGA people, and they're all sorts of bent out of shape because, I'm not towing the line. And I'm going to tell you, quite frankly, in 2024, I'm going to go vote in the general election, and I'm not going to be excited about it, but I'm going to know with a clear conscience that I made the best choice when I vote for Donald. I'll click the box that says Trump, and I'm going to move on. I'm going to do it with a clean conscience because I have to choose. The time is now. If I want to protect things, that's how I do it. Because I'm for keeping Texas, Texas. I'm for protecting my children or potential grandchildren. That's what I must do. Now, I feel the need to talk about the word populist because it's used as a cudgel or a rod, if you will, from time to time to beat people up. And I'll be the first to tell you that I don't think populist or populism means what most people think it means, nor do I think that the actual definition even matters anymore because we've redefined so much of our language that everything is abused. But somebody that's willing to put their people first, to put the interests of their community or their followers first and foremost and advocate for those things, even if they're not necessarily aesthetically pleasing or what's the word I want to use here? Theologically correct or theoretically a good idea or along the principled values that we hold. But if they're advocating for the very people that they support and that support them and they're advocating to protect them and do what's best for them, even if it's a misunderstanding, even if it's not entirely accurate, I got to have a lot of grace for that. I just do. Now, those folks need to perhaps get a better understanding on, well, this theory you're propagating isn't going to work out the way that you think it is. Or this idea has been tried, been there, done that, and doesn't work. Or perhaps, yes, this time we can do it and do it a little bit differently. We might get a slightly different outcome. Those are all acceptable retorts, but to dismiss somebody out of hand because they misunderstand something or they don't have the deep understanding of the economic value of blah, 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 blah. Quite frankly, the vast majority of their voting public just doesn't care. I don't need an expert to run for political office. What I do need is somebody that knows what's right and what's wrong. It is willing to listen to somebody that they disagree with, give them the benefit of the doubt, show a little grace, have a conversation, treat them with respect, and then say, I understand, Mr. Smith. I appreciate where you're coming from. I think you're wrong. I'm going to oppose what you want to do, Mr. Smith. But you know what? I don't hate you. I don't see you as less than human. And I'm going to protect my interests and my people's interests. To me, I think that fits really easy under what the perhaps accepted definition of populist would be at this point. Because again, what it once meant, doesn't necessarily mean anything anymore. We've redefined and redesigned everything. I mean, even the very definition of what's a male is lost. The next thing. So I actually have 3 P's today, I guess. Protect, populist, and promote. So when we talk about what we're going to do, we have to promote it. We have to promote it in such a way that people understand it, desire it, are happy about it, and want to see more of it. The fact that we can tell somebody, hey, you know what? We think kids should be left alone and should be kids until they're old enough to make a decision if they want to do something to themselves that they can never, ever change. We think that kids that have mental concerns, rather than placating them, they ought to be dealt with in such a way that gives them an opportunity to grow up, to become what they were designed to be by birth. And then again, if they want to go do something to themselves that is life-altering as an adult, so be it. Now, I can say all these different things till I'm blue in the face, and I may never ever convince you. But I need you to understand that when you abuse children, when you go after the least of these, you're setting yourself up for a judgment that you don't even want to bear. Now, I understand there are people that have mental defect, for lack of a better way to describe it. And I don't hate them. I have compassion and feeling for those folks. And they need to be handled with kid gloves, and they need to be encouraged to ride it out and understand that there are tough times and the whole world doesn't hate them or all that other stuff. They need to be part of a family or a community or a church or whatever. But people need to work with them. You don't encourage foolishness. But that's what we do. And not just on the issue of what's a male and what's not, but we do it on the national stage with so many things. Apparently, there was a meme that went around in the last couple of weeks talking about women preferring a bear to a man. Now, I got to tell you, didn't see it, don't know much about it, quite frankly. Some of the answers don't surprise me, and I don't really think it's going to change the phrase? The temperature of the water in my pool, especially since I don't have a pool. But the idea being, if you're that hardwired to hate men, you're just going to dry up and go away at some point. Why would I get upset, bent out of shape? Oh, yes, you might be a teacher and you pervert the minds of young people. I get it. Or you might be influential with some other group of people and you cause them to stray. I get it. But one thing is for certain, if you hate men that much, you're probably not raising children. So I'm not going to lose sleep over that. I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it. I'm not even going to defend myself. There's no reason to. I take no offense. I'm not the cause of your distress. I'm not the cause of your problem. And I refuse to accept responsibility for it. And on behalf of men all over the world, no, I'm not going to even say that. Because quite frankly, don't know, don't care. But I am going to promote the notion that to have a strong community, you have to have a strong family. And to have a strong family, you have to have a biological male father and a biological female mother that have children that they actually want and love and take care of. And they raise them up correctly. What do I mean by correctly? Well, there's a lot of ways of approaching this. But the one thing that I'm most sure of right now You need to raise them up to share the same values and the same beliefs that you have. Now, look, there's going to be people out there that don't agree with my values or my beliefs. I get that. And to a degree, I respect it. I'll say you're wrong, but I'm not going to come into your house and tell you what you have to think and what you need to do. And if you want to raise your children that way, I think you're still wrong, but I'm not going to stop you. But I'm not going to subsidize it. That's where I draw the line. So this goes back to the idea that when you want to be for things, and we have this trope that we want school choice. Well, we have school choice, ladies and gentlemen. You make a choice. They're going to extract that tax money out of you pretty much no matter what you want. You have to decide, is it worth the time, the money, the investment to homeschool? Is it worth the time, the money, and the large investment put your kid in private school or a sectarian school or, I don't know, even maybe a charter school? Those are your responsibilities. Those are your choices. Now, I don't think you understand the consequences of bringing in Big Gov. I don't think you've thought this through, that they're going to let you keep a little bit of your coin, but they're going to follow you. And while there might not be strings now, and they may bend over backwards to convince you that they're not going to tell you how those children must be raised, it's only a matter of time. See, because you never get something for nothing. And I know that might sound like a double negative, but it's clearly not. Nobody's going to give you something for nothing. Certainly not government. Now, you might have a close friend that says, well, I like you, Joe. You're a good guy. Here's $20. Don't worry about it. It's all yours. But they're not going to pay for your child to go to school for 12 years, 16 if they go to college. They're not going to alter their entire life for you and your kids. Not without some cost, not without some statement, not without some control. Well, why would government be any different? So again, if you're going to be for things, let me remind you that we are for you to make a choice. How much do you value your children? How much do you value your family? Now, yesterday's episode was about, the idea that cities should be organic and that people have these grandiose plans on how they're going to organize and design an entire city. And they do that in lesser extent in every government school that there is. I don't think there's a direct, exact answer for every student. Yeah, there's a cookie cutter design, which is what the government schools are. And they're designed to, stamp out little worker bees by and large. And I'm being polite. But that's probably not what you want for your children, and you don't want to encourage that standard. But that's what we're at. That's what we're looking at. There's no reason to be upset or be mad or call people names because they don't see things the same way that you do. You just have to ignore them. You have to focus on the things that you can change. Focus on the things that directly affect you. And in most cases, that's your spouse, perhaps your parents or your in-laws, and most definitely your children. Or the extended family, if you will, your tribe, if you prefer. There is absolutely nothing wrong with putting your family and your family's interests first. And all populism is, if you will, in my opinion, is putting the larger group that you belong to first. So I'm a Texian, and I want to put Texas first, right? Because I've been pre-programmed from birth that I'm not supposed to see a whole lot of things that distinguish and make people different than me. Because, as the epitome of all that is evil in the world is a white, straight, cisgender, male Christian, clearly I caused all the problems in the world. And if some people had their way, I'd be removed. But I'm not going to go for that either. because I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to protect my family. I'm going to protect my community. You see, these things all tie together. And when you look to promote those things that are good and well and benefit your family and your community, people work together to do better. People invest in each other. That's how we got to where we're at. Now, we could spend a lot of time poking holes in different arguments and calling each other names and, looking for the root of all evil. But once again, well, like my favorite brand, they put in one of their songs, what are you looking for the devil for when you ought to be looking for the Lord, right? So look for the good things. Look for the positive things. Don't lose sleep over the bad. The bad is always going to be there. You're not going to make it go away until its time is up. But what you can do is work for good things. What you can do is protect the things that are good and worth saving. What you can do is promote your own and promote people that are valuable to you. These are all positive things that we can be doing to just improve life in general. And I say this looking at the face of lots of challenges, lots of negative things, but I choose to think this way. I choose to operate in the idea that there is a better outcome possible. There is something positive to be gleaned from this. And I want to share that with people that take the time out to listen to my show. They invest the, 20 to 30 minutes that it takes to listen. I want to be that cheerleader for you. I want to speak positiveness to you, my listeners. It's very easy to be negative. It's very easy to call names. It's very simplistic to just categorize people by groups and dehumanize them. I mean, I can do that. I'm sure I could probably build up one heck of a following if I were just come on here and call names and call people out and just be a rude and crude, right-wing fanatic, along the lines of Howard Stern, but only right wing, right? To a certain extent, that'd be pretty easy. But life's not that simple. There's a whole lot of other things going on. And I just choose not to live that way. I choose not to think that way. And with that, this has been According to Callus. And I will see you on the other side.